Good afternoon, everyone. I know everyone's probably sagging in energy a little bit, so I've got a abridged version of my presentation, and I'll try and skip right along here. First of all, I do appreciate being asked because Canada has kind of a unique role in the whole global asbestos pandemic. There's a saying from the 1960s that I still remember, some of you won't, but that if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Well, my country of Canada is very much part of the problem when it comes to the asbestos contamination, not only in our own country, the United States, and more into developing nations and third world countries. It's not a stretch to say we're an international bad guy when it comes to this hazard. And as much as I love my country, we're a country of nice people, I assure you, but as Noam Chomsky said, nice people are capable of doing monstrous things. I think Canada's involvement in promoting asbestos internationally is nothing short of monstrous. Canada is not only not banned asbestos in its own country, but we're now I believe the second largest producers and exporters of asbestos in the world. We actively promote and support the industry in our own country, and as Barry Castleman's phrase is, we act as globe-trotting propagandists throughout the world to push it on to developing nations, because developed nations won't buy it anymore. As we know, there's over 40 developed nations that have banned asbestos in all its forms. Canada actively uses its foreign embassies, its missions, its ambassadors to host asbestos peddling conferences to try and encourage developing nations to buy more of it, and therefore creating a legacy of health complications that will last many years to come. We really are exporting human misery on a monstrous scale. Having said that, I wanted to give you a bit of an update as to what's going on in Canada since we met last. I was at the conference at Mount Sinai one year ago. I'll give you the bad news first. First of all, the Rotterdam Convention, I believe Laurie was there as a observer, but Canada intervened to make sure that asbestos did not go on the list of chemicals that require prior informed consent. In other words, the list of hazardous trade materials that the world has said you have to advise where you're marketing it that this material is harmful for you, Canada managed to keep asbestos off that list once again by arm twisting at that conference in Geneva. And that's one. Secondly, in the most recent estimates in Parliament, they've doubled the amount of direct subsidy to the industry and made no mention of the soft money. The bulk of what Canada does to promote the industry is not direct dollars. It's the use of flying Department of Justice lawyers around the world to represent or to try and stop other countries from blocking the use of asbestos. That's carrying on. Again, Barry Castleman is here and he'll be speaking later, but when France wanted to ban asbestos, Canada filed a complaint to the WTO to try and stop them from doing so. Barry actually represented France. And fortunately for the good people of France, they won and Canada lost, and France did the right thing and banned it forever. The last thing that I would point out in terms of bad news is that Canada just recently passed new regulations for the use of asbestos in our own country. As of November 2006, this is very recent, they've issued new regulations that not only, that's really hard to explain this, but they've listed the places where asbestos is allowed to be used. One of which is in spraying on fireproofing, which we just heard from Dr. Levine, what an atrocious practice that is. It's gone out of practice years ago in the building trades industry because of the incredible risk that you're putting workers at, and the fact that when you spray it onto iron beams, within a few short years it begins to dry up and crumble and become friable, and it's scattered everywhere. Our own Parliament buildings in the House of Commons in Ottawa are so contaminated by this spray-on material, they're really unfit for human habitation. And if Canada wasn't so worried about admitting that asbestos is bad for you, they'd probably close down Parliament buildings. The second place that they suggest it can be used is in drywall mud. Again, I'm a carpenter by trade, and I know that when you apply joint compound to a drywall wall, somebody has to come along and sand that later. It, by definition, gets airborne when it's sanded. It sets us back 30 years again by contemplating that this is okay. The third place where they say it's okay is in children's toys. They specifically cite the language they use is that a person may advertise, sell, or import an asbestos product that is, and number two is, a product that is used by a child for learning or play. In other words, educational products, toys, etc. I mean, as an activist, as somebody who's been involved in the anti-asbestos movement ever since I worked in the asbestos mines years ago, this was like a slap in the face that my own country would contemplate that in this day and age it's okay to put asbestos in children's toys. I almost fell over. It can only be viewed as a shot across the bow, that it's an aggressive gesture on the part of the government to say or to try and make the case that chrysotile asbestos, the type mined in Canada, is so benign that it can be used safely even in an application like children's toys. Because nobody in their right mind would put asbestos in children's toys, I don't think. But the government of Canada decided to proactively state that it would be okay if you choose to. So that's the kind of thing that we're up against. There's a bunch of complicated political reasons why Canada is so crazy about asbestos, and it has to do with the province of Quebec. That the province of Quebec is there's been a large separatist movement within the province of Quebec who would seek to break up the country by seceding from Canada. That's always a very close vote when they have referendums. They've had 2 referendums to break away from Canada. The last time it was 49.6 to 50.4 was the vote. Very, very close. So no government wants to do anything to risk offending Quebec in any way. And in Quebec is where all the asbestos mines are. That's the Coles Notes version, the capsulated version of the crazy politics that drives the affinity towards asbestos in Canada. That's the bad news in terms of an update on where Canada's at. The good news is the anti-asbestos movement, the ban asbestos camp, is in fact gaining critical mass. I'm heartened today to see a good friend, Lyle Hargrove here from the Canadian Auto Workers, the largest private sector union in the country, is represented here today with his National Director of Health and Safety, Sharry. They've sat here all day today. I saw them in Thailand, or saw Lyle at the anti-asbestos conference in Thailand. So finally we're breaking through this prohibition of speaking out about this deadly mineral. Is that even within the labor movement, my own background was as a leader of the Carpenters Union, you couldn't get a resolution on the floor of a labor conference or convention because the union representing the asbestos mines would block it. So we weren't even having an honest debate in the House of Labor where you would think health and safety would be paramount. It just simply wasn't getting through. But we seem to have broken through that barrier, led first by the Canadian Auto Workers. We also have the United Food and Commercial Workers, a union that's an international union. It's also in the United States here, is on board now. Our union, a Canadian Union of Public Employees. We're starting to distribute a national petition campaign and a mail-back postage cards campaign. I have a new motion in Parliament. All of these activities are coming together, I believe, are going to coalesce in a conference hopefully in the not too distant future in Canada, where we're going to take it on honestly this time, front and center, without any apology. And if it does have an impact in the industry in Quebec, good, because we'll be saving lives if we shut down those mines. Dr. Selikoff was there in 1978 and 79 doing a study, a survey of the mines in Quebec. And his recommendation was shut them down, pension these guys off, transition them into some kind of work that's not going to kill them and others. That was 1979. We're no further ahead there, really, except to say that even in the province of Quebec, their National Institute of Public Health, those jurisdictions are by the provinces. We don't have a federal public health thing like we have with OSHA here. But their Institute of Public Health found that in the mining region of Quebec, in that sector, the men have the 4th highest rate of mesothelioma in the world, and the women have the highest rate of mesothelioma in the world, I suppose because of the bystander phenomena or taking the dust home on their work clothes. So nobody can ignore those facts and figures anymore. Those who would say that Quebec asbestos is somehow benign or chrysotile asbestos is not as harmful as other types of amphibole, I believe it's called, those arguments don't wash anymore. I was telling Laurie just a minute ago, though, I had a debate in Parliament just a couple of days ago where I was making the case that we should ban it, and a Quebec MP stood up and said, you know, chrysotile is like water. He said, more people die from water than from chrysotile asbestos. So, and this was a former Labour leader from the province of Quebec. So there's still that mindset that they've been buying this idea that chrysotile asbestos is somehow just the way the tobacco manufacturers said there was Camels and there was Camel Light. Well, they're trying to sell chrysotile as asbestos light. Both will kill you, both are deadly, but they've been getting away with that. They bought themselves some extra time by taking the argument in that direction. So I'm quite heartened that with the persistent action that's been going on lately, generated mostly by the work from this organization, frankly. If we didn't have this structure to keep us together as activists in our country, I think it would just be little random ad hoc flare-ups of activity with no cohesive action to it. And I don't think we'd be making the progress that we are. But as I said at the beginning, Canada's a nice country full of nice people, and as they're made aware of this situation, we are garnering support and people are coming on board. It's just that most people in Canada think that asbestos was banned years ago. They really don't know, just like a lot of Americans probably assume that if asbestos is bad for you, surely our governments have banned it. It couldn't be further from the truth. Our government is actively promoting it. At least in the United States, they don't produce it anymore. You do import a lot of Canadian product, but you don't manufacture it here. So having said that, I would simply say being a member of ADAO keeps me focused on this issue. There's many competing issues tugging at a member of Parliament's time. The fact that Linda keeps the drive alive with ADAO keeps me motivated and active, and I'm proud to do so. And I hope you don't think too harshly of Canada. We are doing our best to remedy this situation, but we do take, or I, on behalf of Canada, we have to take full responsibility. We are sponsoring a pandemic of asbestos disease by exporting, as I say, 220,000 tons of this material per year into developing nations. Having said that, I'll be available to answer any questions afterwards, and it was a pleasure being here. Thank you.